There we go. Gosh, I'm actually like 7 minutes late this morning. Unprecedented. It is another beautiful day. And I'm here to drink coffee, eat my last chunk of fresh cheese, although you would hardly call this fresh. I'd actually call this dangerous, since it's been sitting in my fridge for 2 days and it's kind of dried. Good morning. Hey, Dragon Lord. Ian. Hey, everybody. Ian has just uploaded his first YouTube video. I'll be linking to that in the community tab on my channel. And it's his very first YouTube channel show. And I'm quite proud of it. And him for doing it. And I'd like you all to go and watch it. Hey, Adrian, thank you. So, super chatting. Ooh, super chatting. Go super chatting. So, cheers, everybody. Some dangerous cheese first thing in the morning. Am I a witch doctor today? Yes. That is what I am. Oh dear, be kind. Yeah. I think you guys will enjoy it. It's quite cerebral. It's very nerdy. It's about what is magic itself. Where does magic come from? It's well researched. It's relaxing to listen to, very much like my videos. It's a perfect listen for a commute into work, or while you're having breakfast, or while you're at work during the day. Hey Kenneth, who've gone? Sinsu, nice to see you again. Moist Nerglite lover. Gotta go bathe, nice. Dragon Turtle. Asylum X Productions. Gadzooks. Hey Josh. Evan. Comic Nut. Cosmic Voodoo would be a good name for an album, or a band, or a Spelljammer ship, I reckon. Ooh, ee, ooh, ah, ah, ting, tang, wella, wella, bing, bang. Nice one, Lord Nut. Yes, this is the death cheese. Mrs. Caterpillar's death cheese. Not for the light of heart, not to be trifled with. Basically a bacterial culture with an excuse to be cheese. World building. Nice one, Evan. What are you world building? Dragon Tool, no, not if you comment too much, just if you spam the super chat icons. But I'll warn anybody if I see that happening. And fresh coffee, which I very much need this morning. Why was I up so late? Because I was watching, we're getting into the final season of MasterChef, which is a show that I watch with my mum on on TV late at night, because we're both night owls. So we were up at like 1 o'clock in the morning watching MasterChef episodes. Also, Mandalorian. I was watching Mandalorian. Which I know, coming from the Southern Hemisphere, I shouldn't be watching The Mandalorian, but here's my message to Disney. If you artificially stagger the release of your shows around the world so that people in countries like New Zealand can't watch it until the 19th or so, so we still can't watch even the first episode of Mandalorian here, legally paying for the the Disney Plus channel, which I would happily have done. I was ready. I was like, okay, take my money. And so everybody in the States is watching The Mandalorian, and I have to wait until the 19th to watch it legally. And I'm like, pirate. So yeah, I've watched both episodes of the show. Am I going to be paying for Disney now? I don't know, maybe. Do I want to watch the Gummy Bears? Yes. Darkwing Duck? Probably. Magic. I've passed by the Young Adventurers guides, but I have not actually picked them up and read them, no. You're about to start DMing in an hour. Not an in real life friend. Good one. Hands up everybody who DM'd a game last night. Hands up everybody who DM'd a game this week. I didn't actually DM the game last night. I was playing in a game last night of Traveller. And we came up with an idea, what I want to run by you guys, for a channel idea. I know everybody's done live streaming of published adventures, like people running through Lost Mines and Phandelver, or people have done adventure guides where they do walkthroughs where they talk about adventures, published adventures. Just a second. So the idea I had was, what if people did speed running through adventures? And it's kind of a unique concept. I don't think I've seen it done anywhere before, where, you know how people do speed runs through video games, where they try and do it as fast as physically possible. Have you ever seen anybody get online with a group of people and run through Descent into Avernus or Ghosts of Saltmarsh or something like that as fast as possible, so you can see the entire adventure in like an hour or so? So if you're a DM who's interested in running that game, or you just want to watch a crazy spectacle in watching a role-playing game played in a way that is quite unusual, would that interest you? You played in a friend's game last night. Nice. Which Discord server is used for the live stream? This is not actually. Well, this is not through a Discord server at the moment. I'm just broadcasting directly through YouTube. Based on in real life or in game time? Yeah, it's speedrunning modules. So what you do is essentially, there's not as much dice rolling involved. Player characters' decisions, so the people who are playing the characters basically make decisions on where their characters go given the options that are available in the module. But combat is done statistically. So in the way that modules are designed, they're designed with challenge ratings and things like that for each encounter, which essentially wear down the resources of the player characters. And if you take away all of the sort of dice randomness of it, you've got a much better chance of statistically running through the adventure without the dice throwing you curveballs, which is great for a in real life game slowed down to real time where there's drama and tension and things like that. But when you're speed running and it comes down to just your character's decisions on where you go in the module, it's interesting to see whether there are decisions, arcs and trees in the module which will lead to character death unless you roll really well on dice. So if you average out all the dice rolls and you average out all the combat and you say, okay, this combat here will use this many resources of these characters, this character here with these stats at the start of the game is guaranteed to overcome this obstacle and things like that. So the people who are the DM who's running the speed run really has to study that adventure and make notes and things like that and work out mob combat rules and statistical blah. So it's like, there's a bunch of goblins in here, you take 20% of your hit points, etc. So it's interesting. It's a different way of role playing because it's avoiding the rolls. as in dice rolls, and you're just running through the game as a decision making tree, like a choose your own adventure. No name, that's exactly the point. You can walk through most published adventures anyway. Exactly. So it isn't getting through it the fastest in game, but out of game. You're in the game because the players are still making decisions about which way they go in the adventure, given the options. But when you meet an NPC and the NPC is definitely pointing towards the mine, the DM just says, you meet a NPC, and he puts on the NPC's voice and he says, oh, there's some trouble at the mine, go and see. And so everybody just automatically goes. There's no whiffle waffle about, what should we do, blah. And so when you get to the town, the DM flips open and says, okay, the available information that you get from the town is blah, 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 blah. And off you go. So there's no guesswork involved in that. All of the resources that the adventure provides you provide to the players instantaneously. So there's no, they don't have to guess which NPCs to talk to and etc. So it's role-playing light. It's system heavy, but it's also streamlining the system so that you can run through it as quickly as possible. Just an idea. So we're going to try it out and see how it goes. Hey, thanks, Travis. How is a giant named? So it varies quite a lot. Different giants have different cultures. Cloud giants and things like that are quite noble, so they have quite long-winded names. Cloud giants have, storm giants I think have got quite sort of Greek Zeusy type names, Greek god type names, Haberdacus, etc. Hill giants are more sort of orky, guttural type names, etc. It really depends. Thanks, William. William, that might be too many icons. You've got to be careful about YouTube. Yeah, exactly, Hoovgoon. So the idea is basically that the player characters have interrogated everybody in the town as quickly as possible, and they're off. So you shorthand everything. What's the worst adventure hook that I've ever seen, AJ? Your character is in a cage trapped with no equipment. And the first part of the adventure was being tortured by a dragon. It wasn't fun, Wes. It's never fun. Sometimes, though, the worst adventure hooks can be the most memorable. There's something to be said for indelibly burning into your mind an adventure thanks to mental trauma. I don't recommend it, though. You don't want to give your friends PTSD. Free super chats. Yeah, that's the idea. Tight set format, touring through the adventure as quickly as possible to give the viewer an overview of exactly how the adventure is structured. So that when you go to run it in real time, slowed down, you'll understand where everything fits together. You'll be like, oh, okay, I know which bit comes next. Cloud giants have long-winded names. I didn't actually realise I'd made that pun, but yeah. Speedrun of Sunless Citadel could take 15 minutes. Exactly. How fast could you do the Lost Mines of Phandelver? Real fast. Yeah, Call of Cthulhu will actually give you mental trauma. That's the whole point. Would a black dragon tolerate a cult not kill them too much if it's a death cult? Okay, so black dragons by definition are sadistic. So you take your chances with them. If you can keep them entertained by giving them other targets to kill and torture and maim, they'll find you useful. Like a serial killer who has somebody just give them victims is unlikely to just outright kill the person who's providing them the benefit to take care of their needs, so to speak. Like, black dragons are evil, just evil. Everything annoys them. They're like constantly bugged by everything. And their response to everything is to savage them. A little bit, David, not too late. Hoovgoon, what do I think of World Anvil? I think World Anvil is a fantastic product, and you should definitely go and check it out. As for me, it's not something that I would use because I don't like that. Like, I don't like organising my campaigns that much online and stuff. That's why I don't run games through Roll20 and things with like all maps and stuff all loaded up and things. You should definitely check out the video by Hanker and Ferndale on how to use Roll20. If you're not currently boycotting that platform, it's a pretty good video tutorial for that. It's very handy because you can use that for free. World Anvil is a paid service, but you can do certain things on there for free as well. I didn't review World Anvil. I got offered to promote it and stuff on the channel, but I didn't because I just couldn't get into using it. That's not an indictment on World Anvil itself. It's an indictment on me not being able to use the system. It's just I couldn't get in my headspace, and I had a lot of other stuff to do. So it is kind of time intensive compared to just doing your normal pen and paper stuff. But for me, D&D will always be quite pen and paper. I think they might change a little bit when I get the Tilt 5 and I start using a virtual environment over online play. So that's going to be interesting how that changes up the game, because I'd be very highly motivated to get more involved with virtual environments and maps and stuff. Hey, thanks Kevjack. How often do your players subvert your expectations for a story? Also, how can players get a monstrous mount like from the spell Find Greatest Steed? Well, somebody just asked me about how you get a non-magical familiar the other day. And it's a good question, because there's a lot of creatures in the D&D world which aren't going to automatically kill you. Like, don't try and use animal handling on a manticore. It's just not going to work. It doesn't even matter if it's a baby manticore. It's still going to eat you as soon as it can, because you smell like honey-wrapped bacon. So there are lots of other creatures though, like drakes and things like that, that you can tame and mount and use as a riding animal. And if you establish a relationship with a dragon from a young age, a dragon hatchling or something like that, they've got enough strength to fly around with you on their backs at a very young age. So yeah, it's quite doable. But that's more like a friendship relationship. So the stupider the monster is, there's a sweet spot between totally animalistic killer with nothing but instincts to something that can actually be trained to like you and want to be with you. So yeah. As for the other part of your question, which was how do players subvert my expectations, or how often did they subvert my expectations? All the time. That's one of the great joys of role-playing, is that player characters can do things which are unexpected all the time, and I usually give them complete free leeway to do things like that. Like, I very rarely say no to in-game decisions, no matter what the consequences, which can be a problem sometimes when you have players who are just going through a mood or something like that, and they're really taking it out on the player party when they make decisions based on one interpretation of their character, which can cause negative effects with every NPC they come across. And you've got to really be wary of that as a player character, or as a player at the table, how you're influencing the mood and ability to make decisions for other player characters, because you're limiting the freedom of your friends to enjoy their game and their characters as they would. So if characters have no choice but to defend themselves from the decisions that your character has made during the game, you're actually, no matter what justification you make for what your character's actions are, you've got to look at the fact that role-playing games are primarily, and I stress this so many times. Role-playing games are sitting down at a table with people either who want to be your friends in a social setting or people who are your friends in a social context already. So if the friendships with the people around the table is good, the rule system that you're using, the mechanics, your in-character decisions and stuff matter very little. If your in-character decisions are starting to really affect the friendships that you have with people around your table, and you're ignoring that, then you have a problem with the relationship with the people at your table, and the rule system and in-game decisions and mechanics and DM's advice and all that sort of stuff matters not at all. You're having a problem with the people that you're associating with socially at your table. And it becomes a relationship problem. So if you've got a problem with somebody at your table and you're expressing that through the role-playing game, nothing that you do in the role-playing game as a dungeon master is going to fix that situation. You actually have to pull that person aside and say, hey, look, pull your head in. You're being an asshole. You're being a dick to the people at the table, like the people who have chosen to come and spend their time with you for a couple of hours every week or every couple of weeks or once a month. If you want to throw that away, by all means, continue playing your character in that way, and you're going to drive them away from you. You're going to drive a wedge between the relationship between you and your friends. And why? Why are you doing that? Are you having trouble at work or in a relationship, or are you just like, is there something in the game that you're not happy with that you want to shake up? There's other ways to deal with this. You can talk to the DM, you can talk to the other players, you can change up your character, anything you like. Maybe you're causing trouble with NPCs because you want there to be more monsters and fights in the game because you've got a combat-orientated character. Well, if the DM is running a published adventure where there just aren't that many current encounters in the game until you get further into it, and then, like for instance, at the moment I'm running a Chult game, and the characters go from they've kind of skirted past a lot of stuff and gone into a region of Chult which gets extremely dangerous very quickly, and they do have a very combat oriented character who's basically a warforged assassin. So hopefully I'll be able to mitigate some of the warforged assassin's sort of aggressive tendencies, because the shit's about to hit the fan big time, and I'm not entirely sure whether they're actually going to make it to the Tomb of Annihilation at all, because they're going through an area of the game where it gets very, very dangerous. No spoilers, but yeah, it gets very dangerous. And so it would be a disservice for me to not represent how deadly the Tomb of Annihilation really is. Your character's fine, Ian. I've never had problems with your characters flirting with NPCs. Those are funny interactions. But just walking up and instantly threatening to kill every NPC that you come across, it gets real tired real quick. Because NPCs, they live in a dangerous world. Dungeons and Dragons is a dangerous world. If something comes up to them and immediately threatens them, they're going to unleash merry hell on it as quickly as possible. Just like any other player character would. If a player character is sitting there and somebody comes up and threatens to kill them, the player character's response will be to fight that person, subdue and kill them, probably. Hey, thanks, Robert. Vecna's plan uses Cast as avatar to usurp Tharizdun. Oh, boy, how do you unwrap that? Yeah, I mean, well, if Vecna's path to godhood... See, I've had a lot of people asking me lately to do a video on how mortals ascend to godhood. But the tricky thing is, every single instance that I look at in the written lore of a mortal ascending to godhood, it's a different method. And really, the best answer that I can give you, genuinely, no hoo-ha, is that it's your job as the DM to provide that pathway for your players and make it as gnarly as physically possible. Essentially, what the player is aiming for is an end of campaign scenario where they either make it to godhood or they don't, and you weave that into your campaign. asking me what the set method of getting to godhood is like saying, well, what's the set method for ending a campaign arc where your player character turns into a god? There isn't a set method for doing that unless you're running old school basic Dungeons and Dragons. The Immortals box rules, which shows you how to ascend to godhood or demi-godhood in the Mystara D&D setting. So I can make a video about that and talk about that, and you can interpret that as into 5th edition how you see fit. You're going to run into lots of problems in the... you're going to have to fill in the gaps. You're going to have to stucco the walls and smooth over the gaps to come up with some sort of a reliable system for doing that. I can provide the pathway to do that as it was presented in older editions of the game and stuff. In 5th edition, there's no official way to reach godhood. No official way to do it. So I'll do my best. Yeah, that would be a good video series to do, Ian. For sure. No spoilers for the Tomb of Annihilation. There's lots of people who are running through that. Well, I've talked about the actual thing that differentiates a risen character from a mortal being in the first place. So to be a demigod, you basically rise up to the level of power where mortal concerns are no longer such an issue. So we're talking druids who have reached immortality, or monks who have reached the enlightened stage, where they've sort of diamond plated their soul so that they're no longer susceptible to disease and things like that. That's a good step along the pathway. You can also have Taoist immortals who have taken noxious potions of mercury and arsenic and all sorts of other stuff and have actually killed a part of their soul. So they've unbalanced themselves and become yin-yang unbalanced immortal creatures. So they're either they're out of whack with the normal mortal balance of things. And that's where the inevitables come in and actually put things back in order. So a good example of that is if you've ever watched the movie Big Trouble in Little China, with Kurt Russell playing Jack Burton. The character that they're going up against is an ancient sorcerer who's unbalanced his soul so much by doing such vile, despicable, evil things that they've become a detached soul in a body, essentially a lich, which is a spirit entity that astral travels around, but is trapped in a mortal body that's undying, which is really interesting. That's a Taoist immortal. A monster ecology video for the angry marines of Warhammer 40k. Yeah, well, that would be interesting. Yeah, it's a half lich, essentially. Nice one, Gerbil. It's turning the grungs gay. Grungs, I love grungs. Got to do a video on grungs soon. Just big spray bottles for the tabaxi. How would I play a D&T conspiracy nut? Pretty much any sort of a warlock is a perfect conspiracy nut. Warlocks are fantastic. Hey, thanks, Hoofgoon. So is there a process for making a new spell effect? Yes, there is. Or is there some skunk works of wizards combining everything in different ways and seeing what sticks? So gnome wizards are notorious for doing that, using alchemy and science and things like that and magic to throw things into the mix and see what happens, coming up with notoriously unstable things. I love the idea of a wizard academy where, like from The Name of the Wind, where the wizard students are creating magical wondrous items, and some of them basically get it a little bit wrong and some of them get it really right. So some of them produce really perfect like bags of holding, and some of them produce the lesser bags of holding that aren't quite as good. And yeah, they have to sell those things to pay for their tuition, essentially. So the Wizard Academy becomes a factory that's producing handcrafted, bespoke, magical, wondrous items. I love that idea. That's fantastic. It also explains where all these items come from. And then you've got artifacts, which are mastercrafted, lifelong works of devotion by highly skilled wizards and alchemists, often working together or in cahoots with some sort of divine plan to produce an item of exceeding power and dangerousness. Yeah, that's true, man. The emperor who produced that big army of clay soldiers and stuff, he actually firmly believed that drinking mercury would provide you with immortality. He had a wizardly court which had like a stream of mercury running around, which is extremely dangerous. Am I ready for the Artificer class in the new book? Hell yes, I am. Absolutely. Well, it's entirely your choice whether you use Unearthed Arcana and multi-class options, YubTub. It's your game and you can run it however you want. So the players can either deal with it or, don't let them run roughshod over you. You DM what you're good at. Thanks, Christopher. Are you ready? Yeah, so the Artificer class in the new book, I'm absolutely looking forward to. Like, you can't have Eberron without Artificers. It just wouldn't work. So obviously that's going to be official content, and I will be partaking of it as well. Thanks, Jonathan. I have an idea for a dungeon I'd love to get your take on from a NyQuil fever dream I had recently, posting a link to it in the Homebrew Ideas on Discord. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, absolutely do. I love looking through ideas. I'll probably steal some. Hi, Kairos. Question from Danny. I am in one of your videos of magic. I heard the god of magic put a limit on the rank of magic or nearer. Is it possible to wiggle around it as immortal and do demigods and gods have to obey this as well? It's as easy as going to another plane of existence. If you want to cast a 10th level spell, just pop over to another plane of existence or another world setting. So if you go to Mystara, you can cast 10th level spells. If you go over to Athos, you're going to be in dire trouble if you cast any sort of spell, if you're from Faerun. So Faerun has got restrictions on the level of magical spells, but other world settings don't, officially. Even if you go over, I think, if you go over to Abir, which is the sister planet to Toril, Abir Toril used to just be the name of the planet, and then it got split into two different planets in an earlier edition. So there is a sister planet to Toril, which is on the other side of the star, which is so they're basically rotating around like so. One of them is the domain of the gods, and the other one is the domain of the primordials and dragons. Dragons rule over that planet, much like they used to do fairly recently in cosmic terms on Toril. The Dragon Rage mythal is now broken on Toril, and Toril is getting taken over by dragons again slowly. Hence the rise of Bahamut and Tiamat going at each other once again, and dragons will start to take ascendancy over the world of man. Much like they used to over the world of the Gold Elves, who many of the Gold Elves were ruled over by the dragons, and the Eleutheri, the Dark Elves, subverted that and enslaved quite a lot of dragons, and then they got kicked off the surface world and went down and became the Drow, or the Drow, if you want to pronounce it that way. I'm curious where you would place the Hollows in the cosmology of D&D and how would the new neighbours react to them. Hollows. I'm drawing a blank on that one. Sounds familiar. Oh no! Tell me that isn't so, Dragon Turtle. Oh man, that's crap. The Astartes channel got hacked? No! That is really bad news. Damn. I've got to get a VPN or something like that. I'm terrified of getting hacked. That's the thing, we have no protection against that whatsoever. You get to add one chemical to an alchemy jug. What do you add? Mead. Nitroglycerin. What's in this? Gloop, gloop, boosh. Can you cast 10th level spells in the Feywild? Yes, you can. You can cast 10th level spells in the elemental planes. You can cast 10th level spells in the Feywild. You can cast 10th level spells in the Shadowfell. Yes, you can. Exactly, Ian. No spoilers though. You should go and watch Ian's video and he'll tell you all about the weave and the Akasha. I'm sure at least one of the Masked Lords of Waterdeep is a shape-shifting dragon. Oh, hollows from the Bleach anime. Those would essentially be the Sorrowsworn from the Shadowfell. That's how I would do them. They seem custom made for that sort of thing, really. There's no reason why a Sorrowsworn can't come through to the mortal world. Being enslaved to a gold dragon. A gold dragon is still a dragon. It's still a big, saurian, carnivorous reptile creature with a huge ego. Even though it's good, that ego can still have negative consequences for your civilization, depending on how powerful and influential that dragon is. So gold dragons still have vast hordes of wealth, for instance. They're still dragons. Yeah, the Draconomicon is really cool. Yeah, that's a good... Oh, thanks for mentioning that, Dragon Turtle. That's a good point. For anybody who's out there who is interested in me marketing their products and things like that, I'm essentially not answering any emails of that nature. Because, generally speaking, I only market things that I really enjoy. For instance, I just got another set of dice that was sent over by Emily from D&D WoW. I'll just pluck these out here. So if you can see these, hopefully, I'll try and get them on camera, nice and cool. So see, they're kind of they're gold, a gold, nickel, zinc alloy dice, and notice that the D4s have got the rounded edges, which makes using them so much more pleasant because they feel nice in the hand. Okay, that came up nicely. Okay, so these are color shift dice. So see, these are kind of coffee colored. Wait for it, because I'm going to heat them up in my hand. You're going to see what color they go. I love these dice. They're so cool. Also, she's just developed a... she's got D6s at the moment, which are her test dice, but they're multi-color change dice. So they're actual proper mood dice. And she's going to send me some samples of those. And I am so excited to get actual mood color dice that can change color according to temperature to multiple different colors. So that is so cool. So yeah, as for hacking the channel and stuff, I'm not going to be answering any emails from people who are legitimately or not trying to send me products and stuff to review. They can either contact me through Discord or through chats or messages on YouTube itself, but I'm not going to be answering any emails from anybody that's associated with my Google account. I think you might be able to answer emails through Hotmail, possibly. I do have a Hotmail account with the same address as my Google account. So if you're interested in me marketing any stuff for you, if it's a video game, forget it. I don't market video games. I don't play video games on my channel. So stop sending me that shit. Also, stop sending me stuff like, cosmetic products and things like that. I'm not interested. If you're a channel network that is interested in promoting influencers, I'm not an influencer, okay? I'm a sage. I don't care what your consumer product is. I do have some very exciting stuff to give away, possibly at the end of the year, and it will be a giveaway for people who have earned it. So top paying patrons and things like that will be getting prizes and stuff from me. as a thank you for all their support, which I think is understandable. I may have some competitions for people. Thanks, Matthews. Hi AJ, loved your Far Realm Aberration recent videos. Question below if I may. Yeah, absolutely. What would you suggest for a merchant campaign? One where heroes look at adventures not as an end to itself, but as a means to further end establishing a profitable enterprise. For example, international merchant company adventurers are to gather capital at first to find new trade routes, new materials, and to create some innovations to sell, etc. Any tips? So, yeah, I've got lots of tips for that. So it can be as simple as distance. So a product traveling from one location to another, which is a little traveled merchant route. So this is products that people will have never seen before. For instance, if you're taking some rare apricots, fresh apricots from Thay, for instance, in the Forgotten Realms, and you manage to preserve them in a bag of holding or something like that, so that you've got a magical means of transportation, which first of all is very rare, and then you can transport them and deliver them fresh to 10 towns, for instance, where nobody's ever seen an apricot before. It's a big travel, but if you find some means of finding quick transport from A to B using some existing portal or something like that, some safe means of transport, if you've got a wizard who decides to get into mercantile business practices. For instance, it's quite common for wizards to be paid to go as basically protection and mercenaries on board ships that are traveling along the Sword Coast, because there's lots of pirates, and pirates employ magic using wizards and stuff to damage ships as well. Why have all this flammable material on your ship for throwing, tar-coated lobbing tar-coated missiles at ships when you can just lob a fireball at somebody? Perfect example of that is Captain Dudamont on the Sea Sprite, and Abelard the wizard. Is it Abelard? Shit, I've just forgotten the name of the wizard anyway, who is on board that ship permanently, and he's one of the reasons why they're so effective at taking out pirates, is because he hits them with fireballs and stuff. And of course they can make the ships go faster by casting spells of wind and things to fill the sails, and so they can travel no matter what the weather is. So same sort of thing. So you've got wizards who can shift goods through space very quickly, and they would be able to attain wealth exceedingly quickly, particularly if they pair up with merchants who know where to find stuff. So part of that campaign is knowing where to find products in your world. So part of world building, if the players want that sort of campaign, is you got to look at your ecology of your world, your climate zones of your world. For instance, Forgotten Realms has got lots and lots of microclimates and microecologies. That's why there's so many unique monsters and things. They don't roam everywhere. They're stuck in little niche environments like marshes and things like that, scattered all over the place. And quite often these are the apex predator is some sort of a dragon or something like that. And works its way down, but you just have to travel 20 miles or something, and you're in a totally different agricultural or environmental area. And of course people don't travel very far away from where they live, because they're kind of stuck with tending to their lands and things like that. There's not a lot of mass transport of goods. Okay, so these dice, everybody just forgot about these dice, I'm sure. Look at them. Hot pink dice. Isn't that cool? Go from coffee colored to hot pink. How many sets of hot pink dice have you seen that are fabulous gold trimmed hot pink dice? You're welcome. Available from D&D WoW, everybody. Hot pink. Totally glam dice. I love them. You roll those on the table, everybody's going to be like, wow. Yeah, exactly. So you buy from town 1, sell it in town 2. If you can magically transport it, that's excellent. Also, hire adventurers to kill rare monsters and take their body parts and turn them into, dragon bone carvings and stuff. Like, Knucklehead trout scrimshaw from the 10 towns is rare because knucklehead trout only exist in those lakes and things up in that high Arctic region, very close to the Arctic belt of Faerun. So, and people, that's the foundation of their economy in some cases is that scrimshaw, that they carve the bones of those fish, the skull bones of those fish into interesting artistic patterns. And that is a rare commodity that is traded for top dollar the further away you go. So if you get that knucklebone scrimshaw all the way to Kalimshan, for instance, you're going to be earning sweet money for it. But, you know, getting it down the Sword Coast or going overland over that distance is quite an undertaking. And it requires, you know, money for horses and wagons and wagon guards and all that sort of stuff. So by the time it gets there, it's got quite a markup on it. So if you can transport it magically and cut out those running costs, yeah, you're going to be loaded. Yeah, teleportation circles would kind of make merchant caravans obsolete. Exactly. So, yeah, so the power of mages and things like that, they can acquire money very quickly. Power word, I've already checked for traps. I like it. So herein is the other reason why inevitables and things kind of don't like you establishing magical portals everywhere, because it will destroy economies. It actually results in somebody getting starved. Do you have any royal purple dice as well? Yeah, I kind of do. Like for instance, in my prismatic sets, the D20 is a very vibrant, translucent royal purple. Which I really like, and the D12s, the blue on the D12s is almost luminous. It's so bright, which I really love those. Yeah, and even the blue on the D10s, because there's blue and green for the D10s. So I really love these prismatic dice. They are my pride and joy. They're super bright. Divine yellow light, radiant light of a D8, and yeah, but that hot pink of those dice is so good. So it's been out of my hand for a while, and it still stays the hot pink for a while, particularly because it's summer here, and the temperature is, yeah. But yeah, look at that hot pink. I love it. It's so nice. Yeah. Also, there's giant D20 dice, metal D20 dice, which I probably wouldn't give. Like, if you're giving some dice to your kids for Christmas, I probably wouldn't give them a giant 30mm D20 made of metal. I probably wouldn't do that until they're, like, you know, of an age where they're not gonna throw these at things. This is an adult toy. Let me show you its features. If you put this in a slingshot, you're going to take out a car window real easy. So yeah, I don't recommend it. If Jorg Sprav is watching this video for whatever reason, get some metal dice and fire those at things, please. I'd love to see that. Am I a dice collector? Of course I'm a dice collector, Kurt. I'm a role player. Looking for information on Despater but can't find much on the internet. Do you know anything that you can point me in the right direction? Elin, I'm going to be producing a video on Despater this week. You couldn't have asked that at a better time. Thanks to everybody's suggestions on which ones to do. I loved all the people who said, oh, you put a dragon in there. Like, that's obviously everybody's going to ask for a dragon. Well, I didn't know that for sure. I had a feeling from some comments that people were over me doing dragon videos, but I didn't realize that everybody was like champing at the bit for a time dragon video. So we get time dragon video and Despater video this week. Oh, and for people who didn't know what a Triffid is in the options, Triffids are from a classic British sci-fi series. Essentially, they're a intelligent, predatory, mobile plant that has a tongue that lashes out with toxins on it, and they can also spit pollen at people. In the Triffid sci-fi show, essentially the comet that flew over the Earth and scattered these Triffid seeds on the planet. So they're alien invaders. Had a light emanation on it that anybody who saw this amazing comet and looked at it in the night sky went blind the next day. So it's a world with these mobile plants running around and slashing people, and they're blind. So the entire population of the Earth, for the most part, became blind, and there's only a few people who with sight who didn't see the comet, who are trying to save everyone. It's a fantastic show. I hope they remake it one day. Julg Sprav would make an ideal comic villain. Yeah, imagine him as like a gnome artificer, a cleric, an evil cleric of Gond, who's making these missile weapons which are just outlandishly powerful. I have a magical artifact here. Let me show you its features. Oh, that would be fantastic. He's a great guy, honestly. Such a personality. Thanks a lot, Beard Bear. Catch you later. Hoovgoon is a dragon junkie. Night of the Triffids, yeah. Yeah, it was such a bad, like, obviously sci-fi's back then, like Sapphire and Steel. Oh yeah, for those of you who wondered, in the Inevitables, my very last video, the intro music was different behind the usual animation, and that was actually directly taken from the start of the Sapphire and Steel TV show, which is an old British sci-fi. So if you want how to run a horror campaign on a budget, Sapphire and Steel was a really low budget show because they didn't have big flashy special effects and stuff. They used flashlights and lighting effects and things like that. And the characters basically, their big thing was they had telepathy and things. So they would basically just stare at each other and then they'd voice over it afterwards in post-production. I think one of the most complicated special effects they had is Joanna Lumley would just like look off like this, and then they would superimpose extra blueness to her eyes and have this whoop 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 noise as she's using her psychic powers or time manipulation. And they were agents of cosmic order, so they were kind of like the Inevitables as well. They represented elements who were sent to deal with breakdowns in time and space. Any recommendations for a Myconid player character race? I would actually like to see an official Myconid player character. I'm sure there's plenty of excellent homebrew out there. So I would go looking for homebrew first. Yeah. I'd have to think about my interpretation of a Myconid player character, really. I haven't read the Triffid, I just watched the TV show. Hey, welcome to Bronze Dragon, Stanchskate. Long-time member of the channel and chatter and chat room member. Nice to see you. Yeah, there will always be demand for dragons, it's true. Doom Guy could end the Blood War. True. Oh, if Mephistopheles produced a nightmare from a Pegasus, he would probably try and incorporate his cold fire. So you'd have a nightmare which has got cold flames instead of hot flames. So that would be the secret Mephistopheles twist to it, because he's trying to produce an alternative to hellfire. Knock knock, open up, it's the time police. Hey, thanks Kickass Duke, welcome to Silver Dragon. I think you're the only Silver Dragon supporter at the moment. Everybody's either bronze or gold, so yeah, welcome. I'm so glad somebody chose that category. Aldurid Abjuration of the Absurd has a Myconid race. Oh, okay. I covered it? Did I? See you later, Winter Swede. It's almost time for me to go, everybody. I was a little bit late to start the stream. And notice we passed 100 people in the chat today, which is great. It's always my target. Whoa, thanks, James. AJ, do you have any experience and or opinions on the leveling and character development of lackeys, retainers, hired specialists into player characters? I was thinking it could help PC fatigue and death. Yeah, I think it's always good to have some lackeys. Like I'm always trying to encourage my players to have multiple player characters, but they just don't like the idea, unfortunately. But one way that you can deal with that is have a retinue of lackeys who are following them around. Like, it's not just hiring people to I think it's perfectly good, for instance, to have it's almost like a taboo to have players following around a higher level PC, like an NPC who's a higher level adventurer than they are, and they start their career at first or even zero level or first level or second level or third level as lackeys, hirelings and retainers or squires of these other characters. This is the way that it works when you're training to be something. You travel around with a mentor or a tutor or something. Like, how do you think people get to first level player character in the first place if they've got no experience whatsoever with actual combat and things like that? Really, it would be quite disastrous every time they get into the first combat if they've never actually done it before. So it's reasonable to assume that your NPCs that are traveling around with you with packs and things like that, who hire themselves out as guides and stuff, who are actually aiming for an adventuring career themselves, or they've retired from one and they're actually quite capable non-player characters, who could easily, like that, switch over to being a player character that you assume if you're in the middle of Chult and you know, you've just been killed by a zombie jumping out of some tropical vines or something. Where's your next player character going to come from if you want to jump back into the campaign? Well, it would make sense if you had some NPCs, retainers and things along with you who you can then assume as your next player character. That would be perfectly fine. Also, Batville, Colville's strongholds and followers. Perfectly fine there. So you get hold of that supplement and you've got all of the followers that you need. So I definitely recommend picking that up. Thanks, Robert. Lady of Pain versus Tharizdun. How much destruction? Well, Lady of Pain, as we know, has never been spotted outside of the city of Sigil. So it would be as easy as Tharizdun essentially destroying Sigil, which he could do. Probably easily. So yeah. I mean, imagine every single beholder in the multiverse converging on Sigil instantaneously. And they can fly up to there. So they can be outside of Sigil and exert their entire magical power on it. So imagine that. Imagine all the people getting disintegrated remotely. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Thank you, Outer Limits. Do you think they should bring the 3.5 crafting system to 5th edition? If yes, what changes would you bring? If not, why not? No, yeah, I would definitely bring back the crafting system for spells and things like that. Oh, yeah, people are asking me about that, crafting spells. So I love the idea of crafting magic. There's a rich tradition of it. If you only have to scratch the surface of the Forgotten Realms to get back to the Netherall Empire and the region and the time period where they were producing all the spells that people are commonly using as player characters. And that was the next video in the Netherall series that I was hoping to produce, where I still want to do that, where talking about all of the origins of the spells that people are using from the spell lists in the book right now. So where does Colour Spray come from? Well, I can tell you. Exactly where it came from. So it's perfectly fine, and I think it's reasonable that players who are playing wizards, arcane researchers, have the opportunity to discover new spells or research elements of spells and then put them together as close as they can to the evidence they have of, like, if a wizard sees that a spell has been cast in the past, like for instance swords to snakes or sticks to swords or something like that. Like, they've seen an ancient spell that's no longer in popular use, but it could so easily be brought back into use by them just researching and finding a scroll or something like that. So if you're running an old adventure module, or you pick up an old adventure module and you see a spell there that you don't see in 5th edition, absolutely come up with some version of it for 5th edition, or allow the players to research and come up with a spell for 5th edition themselves. So I'm fully okay with that. Also, creating wondrous items. They should be able to create wondrous items. It should be part and parcel of their training as a wizard to understand magical items. Bards can also make wondrous items as well. They deal with magical instruments and things so often. Why would they not produce magical instruments themselves? They know exactly what they need far more than a wizard or an alchemist does. So they would probably produce magical instruments themselves. So they would find the finest craftsmen to produce masterwork lutes and things like that, and then they would enchant them themselves. Or they would find wizards who can do certain aspects of it, blacksmiths, silversmiths, bowyers, and all sorts of other people who or fletchers and things who can produce the fine components that they need. Thanks, Kick-Ass Duke. Have you ever played a cartoon-style D&D campaign? Roadrunner as an Aarakocra, a monk, Sylvester the Tabaxi, getting hit with a warhammer squishes you down like an accordion, fireballs turn you into ash. No. No, I haven't. I'm not opposed to the idea. I have actually played Toon, which is a straight-up Warner Brothers cartoon role-playing game, which is fantastic. It's very much like if you took away the humans from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, that's exactly what a game of Toon is like, which I highly recommend if you're in the mood for that. You have to be in a specific mood for a cartoon game, though. I wouldn't recommend running a campaign. Maybe a few one-shots or like 3 shots or something like that. I don't know about a campaign of that, though. But I'd be down for it, for sure. What do I think of the slime as race is playable? Yeah, no, perfectly fine. Yep. I mean, we've got shifters and changelings, so yeah, shape-shifting and morphing and stuff is quite fine. Essentially, wild-shaped druids. If a wild-shaped druid can change form and do stuff, then yeah, sure, play an ooze. I don't care. I would say get kind of old school on it though, like. In original Dungeons and Dragons, old school OSR Dungeons and Dragons or D&D Basic, that would be your player character. So instead of taking, as you level up your character, essentially they have to take racial feats. So they don't have a choice of leveling up their attributes, and they don't get a choice of other feats. They have to level up and take a racial progression feat. So they become more... so they start off as an ooze with certain disadvantages because they can't hold their physical form. Like they can't mimic the appearance of a human being very well at all at low level. And then as they level up, they gain the ability to shapeshift with more fine control. So think Odo from Deep Space Nine, for instance. So I think, yeah, absolutely. There is definitely a room for a slime or ooze player character in the game, and ooze mages and stuff like that, like clerics of Zugdmoy or Dewyblex, for instance, or cultists of Dewyblex would be perfect, or warlocks with Dewyblex with as a patron could quite easily take on ooze qualities for sure. Ooze Genasi. Yeah, well, it's an elemental plane. Oh yes, I have used wizard schools in my campaigns, Green Scythe. Oh nice. Tome of Blood, there are schools for each subclass of the wizard. Yeah, so Kobold Press is coming out with their supplement for all the different magic schools and stuff soon. That's going to be really good, I think, quite a bombshell. That will be the Strongholds and Followers for 5th edition, but for magic, I think. What do I think about the idea of a D&D anime or manga? Critical Role! Yeah, perfectly fine. Yeah, no, don't eat the ooze, people. It's like, it tastes like burning. Yeah. The Well of Many Worlds is a very interesting item. I am working on a table to determine where it goes and what happens when you open it. Anything you can recommend for crazy situations? Oh, Bwim. Yes, sorry. Okay, Bwim 2. Yep. Why did your comment get flagged, Stanchgate? Did it? Hang on, let me go up and check. I love the apocalyptic feel of the Netherreal. I can't see any flags on your comments, Stanchgate. Oh, I might have allowed it already. I think if you use the word shit in the in your comments, it's going to flag it automatically for profanity. There's automatic flagging that happens on YouTube now. It's out of my control. What were we talking about? Hey, thanks, James. Welcome, James Greenan, to Bronze Dragon. Rawr. The lady is stated in Divik to need to hold back and not reveal her true form, or she would destroy the multiverse. She is essentially an overgoddess of Sigil. My money's on her. Yeah, so there's also other conflicting theories as well, is that the Dabu are actually in control of Sigil, and a random Dabu puts on the garments or the artifacts of the Lady of Pain and then just floats through the city. So there is no Lady of Pain, it's actually the Dabu who are doing that. So that's one theory. Michael. Stop it, Michael. Don't do it. Yeah, you do get flagged for that, I'm afraid. What was the other question? I've forgotten. Dark Sun. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's enough old school interest in Dark Sun. Honestly, I don't know if the market share would actually justify it. Any safe places in the Nine Hells for tieflings to hide or even live? Yeah, well, essentially they're like low-grade Cambions. Cambions are kicked around quite a lot in the Nine Hells. So essentially, if tieflings get into service of infernal powers, you can't really survive in the Nine Hells without being in service to somebody higher up. Its bureaucracy is built into the fundamental physics of that plane. So yeah, there'll be a safe place for them as long as they're in service to somebody. And yeah, hopefully they're all right. Yeah, the conspiracy theories of Sigil. Most people don't worry about what's going on with the Lady of Pain. What was that other question? Wizard schools? The Well of Many Worlds. So, yeah, that's where world building on the fly comes in handy with the Well of Many Worlds. Come up with some sort of theory about a planet. Like, say you've got an acid-themed planet, or an insect-themed planet, or a Candy Crush Saga themed planet, or a cheese themed planet, something like that. You know, some dominant element of the planet that really jumps out at players, because the idea is that the players aren't going to go to those worlds for very long, so make them as entertaining as possible, with the possibility that it's difficult to get back. But if you've got an escape route, you can make the planet as interesting as you want, as bizarre and outlandish as you want. So, for instance, a planet that is made up of rotating rings, of basically Dyson rings that are rotating around inside each other, like an orrery. So, getting from one ring to the other could be quite interesting. So, say they're connected through magical portals, and there's an intricate trade network from the outer rings, which have got all the solar energy and stuff coming. So you've got agrarian outer rings, which go down to a technological inner ring, which is reliant on the slave force of, and they've got the wealth of the core power, or something like that. So you can come up with a really bizarre, outlandish world that the Well of Many Worlds is connected to. So that's inside an entirely different cosmic sphere if you're playing a Planeswalker or a Spelljammer setting. So you can come up with some really bizarre alien environments. Like some of the worlds, for instance, the world plans that they had on Voltron, the latest animated series of Voltron, were really interesting. I loved watching that show just for the world designs that they had. So they had some really bizarre worlds and planets on that show, which I was not expecting when I started watching it, but it actually hooked me. Watching like all the different planets they went to. I think they probably could have developed them a little bit more, once they got onto the planet, it was a little bit like, Stargate. It's like, oh, really? Every planet's got a pine forest? Interesting. Anyway, Sigil is flat, y'all. Okay, it's time for me to go, everyone. Are there magic pulsars in the space on D&D? Yeah, why not? Why not, Stanchcoat? That sounds like a fantastic idea. Monster grafts, yeah, for sure. All right, I'll catch you later, everybody. I've got videos to make. I'm going to try and pump out 3 videos this week, see how we go. It's getting close to Christmas. Yeah, No Man's Sky is a good example of how you can change little elements to the ecology of worlds to make them really interesting. Other than that, it's just basically big ticket cosmic forces like gravity, temperature, what color and intensity of light, what is the atmosphere made out of, how much water is on the planet, things like that. So another good way of doing that is if you get Traveller, for instance, the old, you can probably pick up some world generation charts for Traveller or various other, there's lots of supplements out there. I myself have got a system for generating worlds and ecologies and ecosystems and life forms that I developed with Anthony Marco. I developed with Marco a long time ago. So I'll put a link to that somewhere. I'll probably put that in the community tab, and you can go and use that to your heart's content. And just roll some dice and you'll come up with some really, really unique life forms and things like that. And then you can assign whatever stats you want to them. So, okay. Catch you later, everybody. Have an excellent day, and I'll see you soon.